Det vet jag.
Är du beredd?
Min kropp är rädd. Inte jag själv.
My name's Kenneth.
And I'm Matt.
And we are the Movie Meisters. And we just saw the movie The Seventh Seal. Matt, what is The Seventh Seal about?
The Seventh Seal is about death and the tragedy of the human condition. Mostly it's about a knight who's living during the Black Plague and has witnessed all the horrors of humanity and is trying to reconcile himself to dying by playing a game of chess against death himself.
Alright, so you've told me many times that this is one of your favorite movies of all time. I'm seeing it for the first time and I really enjoyed it. Tell me, Matt, what makes this one of the best?
This movie caught me by surprise when I first watched it. I was in college and I was thinking, well, you know, I watch all these movies. Maybe I should be like a true connoisseur of the movies. So I went back and watched a lot of early expressionist films, you know. And I was watching these films, I figured, oh, okay, you know, Metropolis, Nosferatu, you know, they have all these like iconic moments and shots where you see it and you just think, this shot is perfect. And
Yes.
Of course this influenced everything that came after because the shot is so well put together and it captures the emotion of the situation so precisely. But the rest of the movie, like Nosferatu for instance, the acting in Nosferatu is super hammy, but almost it seems like on purpose, way over the top. The plot is just simplistic. If you take away the photography, I guess you could call it, the story and the characters are not compelling. And so on my trip through the expressionist cinema, I watched The Seventh Seal and I thought, right at the beginning, you got that great shot of death just standing there on the beach. You know, you got the nice white beach and there's just this black silhouette of death with a white face sticking out. Like, oh, here is again one of those great shots like Nosferatu standing in the arched doorway. This is just going to be like the other ones, you know. But the plot of this movie is like, it's relentless. It's everything about life and death, and it's slow. But this movie is slow in a way that is intentional and rigorous. It's like you can't divert your attention away from it. It forces you to slow down and see everything. It's like someone holding your hand over a candle, and you have to, like, I know in theory that fire hurts, right? But you know, if you hold your hand over the candle, you feel that fire hurts. And this old idea of, you know, well, what is the meaning of life, and can life have any meaning, and oh, maybe if I help out somebody along the way, you know, that will give meaning to my life because I passed something on. It's like, well, I mean, that's kind of trite and silly, but this movie makes you look at it for a long time and feel it and sit in it, and it took me completely off guard. I was ready to appreciate this movie only visually and write off the plot of it, and it, you know, it caught me unawares, and that's, I don't know if it can ever recreate an experience like that. I think this will just always be one of my favorite movies for that reason.
Vad ska jag föreställa?
Det är dödsdansen.
Det är döden.
Ja, han dansar iväg med dem allihop.
Varför håller du på med sådana kladderier?
Ja, jag tänkte man skulle påminna folk om det faktum att de ska dö.
I didn't know anything about this movie. I knew it starred Max von Sydow, and I knew it involved a knight from the Crusades playing chess with death. In my mind, I was just thinking, all right, the whole movie is going to be him playing chess with death, and it's going to be flashbacks to what went on in this person's life. But no, the presence of death is very abstract in this movie, where everyone seems to just accept, oh, that is death. No one's amazed, like, oh, there's the living personification of death. No, just there is death. That pervades like every nook and cranny of this movie, where you have this knight who's questioning the meaning of life. Oh, is there a God? If you pray, is there anyone answering back? And constantly saying, I feel like there's nothing. There is no answer. The reason he's playing chess with death is not to extend his life for anything. He's trying to find the meaning, and he wants to see if maybe death has that meaning. It's a very unusual plot, and of course visually it's amazing. I want to say almost final shot, not exactly the final shot, but the almost final shot is of death leading many of our characters who have passed throughout the story on a mountain, and it's just picturesque, and it's an image that I'm sure almost anyone has seen, but they don't know necessarily know what it's from, and then there it is. On its surface, it's just, oh, this movie about a motley crew of characters going through a forest trying to avoid the plague, but it's so much more than that. You have the paranoia of the people assuming that it's the apocalypse and sacrificing people that they assume have some kind of connection with the devil, just the fear of the plague and everything. It gets under your skin in a great way. It's like, this is not exactly a pleasant movie, but it's like, it's haunting you. So as death is approaching towards the end, you feel more of the emotion that you get out of the characters and what they're going through, and it's piling it on so much that by the end you just like, ooh, I'm afraid of death now.
Right. The characters are presented with all these terrible situations of living through the times of the plague, and the pacing is so slow that you feel like you're being forced to watch these things. Like, you see people turn on each other, like in the tavern, they force the juggler to act like a bear, and he slowly passes out by being asphyxiated from the fire, and you just get this repetition of cutting to him dancing, and then cutting back to people slamming their glasses, and then cutting back to him dancing. It's over and over, almost the same imagery over and over again. You feel like you're being worn out too, and this guy is slowly falling unconscious, you know. Or when the witch is being burned, it takes so long, the working up to it, and then they even leave before it even happens. Can I stand by while this is going on? Like, oh, I'm going to help in this small way, but I can't actually interfere or do anything. And then you see the guards are being suspicious of the knight. Like, maybe if he interferes, they're just all going to turn on him. And then finally, when they go away, you get the great long shot with the witch in the foreground, and you see death there in the background, that silhouette again.
Yes.
It's just like, God damn. This feeling is pervasive of all the characters always talking and discussing about death. They're always afraid that death is going to come for them, or threatening each other about how death is going to work. Or the play the jugglers are doing is about death. The painting the guy is painting is about death. It's inescapable for the characters, and it's all that is ever happening on screen. It's just people are consumed by it.
The movie comes across to me as like an early version of everyone knows that the world's coming to an end. This is how society crumbles in its way. You'll have people on the more religious side who are whipping themselves in order to, oh, we're being punished and we need to ease God's anger by punishing ourselves. And then you have the characters in the tavern turning against the juggler for no real reason other than he might be connected to someone who had an affair. And then you have the juggler, you have his wife, and you have his child, who are supposed to be like the contrast to everybody else, I guess, where they're the ray of hope in all of this nightmare, but they're still discussing death. The one place where our main character, the knight, finds peace throughout the whole thing.
Yeah, so there's this great scene toward the end that really got me when I first watched this, where the knight and death are having their final chess confrontation. And that death says to the knight, I have no secrets. Which is kind of this triumph of death, right? At the end, after all this worrying and superstition and crazy things people are doing about death and what the Black Plague means and why everyone's dying, death just says, I have no secrets. And he says this right when he's winning the chess game. And it's like this ultimate moment where death is victorious over that night. But then at the same time, they're cut to the wagon leaving because the juggler and his wife escape. And so even though he's failed to trick death in the chess game, the knight, there is, in some sense, he's claimed a victory over death, right? He's allowed the juggler and his wife and their child to escape and have a life, at least temporarily, outside of the Black Death. And when all the other characters die and the juggler looks at a distance and he sees the vision of everyone dancing on the hill, they're not there dancing on the hill. So that moment when the wagon is going away and death is like, aha, I've beaten you. But the knight has consolation of, even though he can't escape death, he can at least help someone out along the way. Even though everyone in the caravan also dies after they go back to the knight's castle, he let that couple and their child live a little longer. It's powerful.
Du är matt i nästa drag.
Det är sant.
the black and white, I think. Everything is so stark.
Yes. Yeah, it's back in the age of visual storytelling, really. They say what they're feeling, they say what's on their minds, but the events that happen, the resolutions are just very subtle. I enjoyed that aspect of the movie.
Yeah, so watching this the second time around, I guess I've talked about what affected me the first time, but there's a lot of little things that I never noticed that I just kind of want to go through, and then maybe you can jump in with bits of cinematography that you noticed, maybe. So there's 2 times in this movie I noticed where somebody is looking at something amazing, and then they don't cut to the thing. They just show the person's reaction, and you're supposed to understand. So right at the beginning, the juggler has a vision of a woman walking a baby through the forest. And then it cuts to his face, and he's like very happy seeing this vision. And then his countenance falls, and he's looking around like he.
Mhm.
But it never cuts back to there being nothing there, which is what you would expect, I think, in the kind of modern way that cinematography works. You cut back and show the empty forest, and I guess I don't understand why they don't do this more. I feel like that's a more natural way of conveying that there's nothing there than sort of just cutting. I mean, they say show don't tell, but sometimes showing is also telling a little bit too much. Like, you don't need to cut back and show,
Yeah,
he's looking, and then also there's nothing there in the same place that he was looking.
It's
before.
reliant on the performance more than the obvious statement of what you're seeing. Yeah, that's true.
They go to ask a man where the inn is, and it turns out that he's dead. But one of the ways they imply he's alive is there's a dog sitting there the whole time. And they never put the camera on the dog, but there's just a dog there in the shot.
Yeah.
It kind of makes you think that that guy's alive, but his dog is just waiting there for him, even though he's been dead for who knows how long.
One shot that I distinctly remember is the knight is talking to the witch, asking her, "Oh, have you met the devil?" And he's trying to see. And the whole time he's talking to her, so you were talking about if he interferes too much with them burning her, they're going to turn on him. And then constantly in the foreground, you have one of the guards just up close, really close to the camera, whereas you have Max von Sydow and the witch in the background, and he's constantly talking to her. But you see the guard, he's constantly looking back and forth like he's listening to what he's saying. This movie is showing you exactly, it's like there's this looming danger right here. You know, if you say too much or do the wrong thing, it could very easily turn on you too.
And the dialogue is great in that too, because he's asking her about the devil. You know, it's like, oh man, this guy's in trouble. But there's a similar suspenseful sequence with 2 people's face in the same shot where Death is pretending to be a priest at the confessional. The knight will turn away and sort of talk to the priest about what he's feeling, and in the background you'll see Death will turn toward the audience as if to just reveal, like,
Hey,
here
I'm
I am,
dead.
but
Yeah.
he's never looking. And then there's a great reverse shot where you see the knight's face through the grill of the confessional, and the Death is taking up like the entire left half of the screen. And just as the knight is turning around, Death turns his face just enough so that you can see from the perspective of the knight his face would be covered, but he turns at exactly the right time to exactly the right angle where you know that the knight can't tell. It's just tremendous. And then they continue the conversation. There's a scene where an actor is being tempted by a woman from the village, right?
Yes.
And while they're sort of doing their lovers talk, which we can't hear, the other actors are doing a play in the background, a little comedic sketch, and they're doing all these like rooster noises and stuff. And right when this woman laughs, there's a chicken cackling sound.
Yes, I noticed that.
Oh man, that is good. And it's not even clear, is it from the actors? And there are also chickens there walking through the shots. It's like, was it one of the chickens? It's like, and it's perfect timing with her laughter. So it's almost like it could be any of these things.
Right, yeah.
That's a little bit of cleverness. There's effect when someone smacks a fly against their face, it leaves a little dot behind.
Yeah.
Like, squish the fly.
Yeah. And he's like wiping his hand like, oh, I got the fly off, but it's still stuck on his face. Yeah, I would put this movie up there with, at least in regards to more off the beaten track films like Eraserhead, where it's a different kind of movie than what most audiences are used to seeing, where it's about something larger, but it's something perhaps a little more difficult to comprehend. This is about as far away from trying to pander to some audience or something. This movie's actually trying to say something. It's actually becoming a work of art. What sort of audience would you recommend this movie to?
Well, I think I would recommend it to anyone, just because I think that as long as you know that the idea of the movie is to be slowly paced for a reason, that you can deal with it. I don't want to like talk down to people and say you're too stupid to watch this movie or something. I think that that's bullshit. If you were to judge this movie on a criteria of, is the plot snappy? Like, does it meet the language of film as it exists today? It fails a lot of those tests. It's extremely slow, but it's that way on purpose, right? So it's,
yeah.
you can handle the movie. I promise you. Just give it a try.
Yes. Yeah, I'll agree with you there. This movie, it's very heavy with its themes, and it takes you through an experience, which is what a movie is supposed to do. You're at the end of any movie, especially a great movie, you should feel emotionally drained. This movie definitely does that. And the theme of this movie is death, and it never wavers off of that theme. And in that regard, it's amazing. Well, those are our thoughts on the movie, The Seventh Seal. We are the Movie Meisters saying,
Cinema is not a slice of life, but a piece of cake.
thanks for watching.